Welcome to my 100th video. And for this review, I decided it had to be my favorite dinosaur, Carnotaurus. And which more timely than this, the 2021 PNSO Carnotaurus. Now here's an ironic thing. Sauropods are my favorite dinosaur group, ceratopsians my second. Theropods are probably last. But when it comes to individual dinosaurs, Carnotaurus is my favorite. When I saw this teaser years ago, I fell out my chair. And halfway through PNSO's current streak, I thought, how awesome if they came out with their take on Carnotaurus. Well, they have. Maybe it was coincidence, but this being the year of the ox or bull, it couldn't be a more appropriate time. Now I considered saving this for Chinese New Year, but I just couldn't wait. I couldn't even wait till Sunday, which would be the most appropriate day given that this Carnotaurus is named Domingo. Now I'm curious about the backstory behind the names because we've had a few Spanish ones. Carnotaurus is from southern Argentina, but it's not geography because Rosana is from Portugal and Perez is from the US. Now Domingo measures about 25.5 centimeters, which is about 10 inches. Now using an estimated 9 meters or 30 feet happily makes him 1 to 35th scale. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? To me, the most interesting point for theropods is always the head, since their bodies tend to look pretty much the same. For Carnotaurus, the horns stick out like two sore thumbs. As you can see, they point up and to the sides, but also curve slightly inferiorly, which is accurate. Now many illustrations and models have them straight or even curved upwards. PNSO has also captured the blunt, deep head very nicely. The narrowness of the Carnotaurian skull seen from the front is admirably captured. The eyes are very tiny and yet painted very precisely. The jaw is articulated, and the shape of the mandible matches the diagram very closely. As for facial integument, while we don't actually have skin impressions, I've read that some were found, I couldn't find any on the net anyway, we do have osteological correlates that give us a clue, such as the rugosities and other features that you see in the skulls. So for example, in a Carnotaurus skull, there is coarse pitting and grooving, suggesting overlying cornified tissue. And so you could come up with a model looking like this. Now, on this model, you don't seriously expect any less, do you? Coming from PNSO. Let's just have a quick look. Just such very nice detail. You just notice the texture and color of the horns as well. And speaking of color, the paint job matches very well with the release images, except for maybe some subtleties in the very front of the snout. But generally, the overall color is so close, I really don't have much to say. It seems like PNSO just gets better and better at giving us what they promise, and if this continues, I might just forego any comparisons in the future. Now, I love stripes in dinosaurs, and PNSO's certainly given us some beauties. But this is particularly striking, reminding me of the tiger and Also, that sideshow Carnotaurus repaint, which I didn't get. The markings fade so smoothly into the surrounding skin, with very smooth realistic transitions, such as from the back to the front of the legs, or the top to the bottom in the flank for some counter shading. Now, Carnotaurus is famous for having been found with fossilized skin impressions. Now, frustratingly, images are really hard to find. We have these poor shots from Bonaparte's original paper, but Cherkas's 1997 paper can't be found for love or money. Still, we have impressions from the front of the neck, the shoulder, the thorax, and most extensively, the ventral proximal tail. And scalation is mentioned in the paper to be quite homogeneous, and it seems to have been of two main types. There were larger conical protuberances that were 4 to 5 centimeters in diameter, that's about 1.6 to 2 inches, and these were spaced 8 to 10 centimeters apart, that's 3 to 4 inches. Now, these spaces were in turn filled in by smaller 5mm scales, very small. So at 1 to 35, you really shouldn't see any, nor should you see thousands of varieties of scale as many beautiful models depict. But that would be boring. And since there are areas from which we didn't find skin impressions, I think we'll still have plenty of canvas for artistic license. And this PNSO has wonderful scalation, as you'd expect. Of special note, there's a central line of osteoderms running the midline of the animal through its entire length. And then down in the body, you see the idea of those two types of scales being expressed. You have smaller scales all over, but these are peppered with larger feature scales. And I like that they've chosen to go with a more random appearance. Obviously, neat rows like these are very nice. But it's also nice to see a different take. A point of fascination for me are Carnotaurus's useless tiny arms. Now, we're not talking T-Rex arms with well-defined bones and powerful muscles. We're talking about a limb so useless it's actually missing the carpals. Now, that's the wrist bones. So that means there's no flexion, extension, or deviations of any kind. So no piano playing for this Carnotaurus. Now, the forearm bones are also a quarter the length of the humerus. That's your upper arm bone. And this seems to be common to abelisaurids. So for example, here's a picture of Alcasaurus, courtesy of Dr. Philip Curry. And here's a schematic of Alcasaurus and Majungasaurus. Compare that with Allosaurus and you quite see the ridiculousness of it. I'm very happy to say here that the arms are indeed sufficiently useless for my liking. Very, very vestigial. Now, the portion of the forearm to humerus is near perfect, and you can imagine that some of that humerus, of course, would be hidden under some of these muscles here. In fact, from some angles, you almost can't see the arms, and that's how it should be. Now, there have been some suggestions that Carnotaurus had its arms completely hidden underneath skin. Now, for me, these vestigial arms and hands have often been a key deciding factor on whether to buy a Carnotaurus figure or not. So take, for instance, this careless purchase that I made. I would not have bought this. Now, at this point, you can't help but notice this deep-shaped chest, and that's largely due to the underlying scapulocoracoid. It seems that in a Bellisaurids, while the forelimbs reduced, the scapulocoracoid maintained their size. And that's because a whole bunch of muscles besides the arm still attach here, such as the powerful neck muscles it still needs, whether for head shoving or head butting, or to bring its head down on prey like an axe. You need powerful neck muscles. Now you can't talk about Carnotaurus without talking about its tail and the associated caudal-femoralis muscle. Now, this muscle originates on caudal ribs of the caudal vertebrae and inserts onto the fourth trochanter of the femur, and it can produce two actions. With the tail fixed, it draws the leg back. With the legs fixed, it works in reverse insertion origin to move the tail. In Carnotaurus, the caudal ribs, what you can think of as transverse processes of the tail, are oriented more upwards than horizontally. Now that makes space for more volume of the caudal-femoralis. More volume, greater cross-sectional area, more powerful. Because of this though, the epaxial muscles up here have less space and so are comparatively smaller and weaker. Now persons in 2011 proposed a possibility like this, but you can see here that PNSO hasn't quite exaggerated the thickness that much, which I really feel they could have. Now on either side, there is a small groove of sorts, and I'm not sure if this represents the tips of the caudal ribs, with the epaxial muscles filling in here and also here. Now I might be completely wrong on my surface anatomy, but it's really quite a very nice detail. The caudal ribs articulate in such a way as to limit movement to give it more stability, because you remember these guys which stabilize the tail got smaller? So locking the tail makes sense to lend more stability, and the best illustration I can find is the tail of a relative, Ourosaurus. So the tail is stiffer, at least proximally, as you can see here. And that makes for a very solid anchor for the caudal-femoralis when it contracts, retracting the thigh in a powerful backward stroke. And there's no sinuosity here, so it wouldn't be maneuverable. So probably an ambush predator and not a chase hunter. And since Carnotaurus was probably a powerful sprinter, reconstructions have tended to give it long legs and muscle it accordingly, this version included. However, we really only know Carnotaurus to its knees, as Dr. Tom Holtz passionately reminds us. In the original paper, Bonaparte based the reconstruction of the limbs on another Bellisaurid, Xenotarsosaurus. Now striding on these legs, with a little twist like a supermodel strutting with purpose and confidence, I really love this pose. Now PNSO seems to have mastered the art of creating beautifully proportioned and posed bipeds that still manage to stand independently, although this stand is provided. Now let's compare him to the other 1 to 35th scale theropod in recent memory. That's of course the updated Wilson, the T-Rex. At 12 meters and 6 to 7 tons to Carnotaurus's 9 meters and 2 tons, T-Rex would snap him like a twig. And they display beautifully together, not just aesthetically and scale-wise, but as an illustration of the different forms that the ultimate predators took in the late Cretaceous, in the north and in the south. Almost every part of Carnotaurus is specialized in some way, and I think that's one reason I'm really fascinated with Carnotaurus. I like the outré and the confluence of so many unusual traits in one animal: the horns, the short blunt head, the freaky arms, the super tail. It really makes you want to go in depth with an animal and what makes it tick. So there we have it, the Carnotaurus from PNSO. A true beauty that captures everything I love in Carnotaurus, and crown that with a beautiful pose and a striking color. And that's it for this 100th video. Now I really want to thank you for all your support and also your very engaging thoughts and comments. Now the comments from the recent videos like the Tyrannosaurus and the Tianzhousaurus really gave me a delight to read and learn from, and I really look forward to doing more reviews and sharing the knowledge I've learned about the dinosaurs behind the models with you. So have a great Domingo ahead and a great sábado too.